All right, let's talk about the AP test. What you're going to be doing is a 5 to 700 word prose or fiction selection. Then you're going to be given a question to answer about that. 40-minute essay, and you'll have 5 minutes to load it up. So let's continue with our review, but in a more focused way. We're going to start with characterization. Characterization is the author's uses to contribute meaning in a text. So as he fills out the character and makes him three-dimensional, he's showing or conveying ideas, values, beliefs, assumptions, biases, and cultural norms. And through all of this, he develops the theme. So what we're going to do is look at all the different characterization techniques. We're going to look at examples of those techniques and how to write SEC paragraphs for each one of those techniques. Now, this is really important to do this work. The test is open book, open note. Now, as we had done earlier in the year, we took the definition and we did like a plug and play. No matter what we were reading, as long as we had the definition and the function, we could just insert it into a paragraph, regardless of the text, as long as it was using that particular device. And this is what we're going to practice today. So what you're going to do is do these exercises. You're going to organize them in a fashion so they're right next to you, open book, open note, and then if they ask about a particular technique, you have it right there to use. Let's get started. Okay, we have 5 different techniques the author uses to develop a character. Direct comment by the narrator, where the narrator tells you something explicitly about the character. Or we can have the character's thoughts and motivations revealed, whether directly or indirectly. It could be direct comment by the narrator, it could be through his actions or his dialogue, and we learn about him. The dialogue of the characters themselves, whether it be the main character or other characters, and the actions of a character, what a character says, and what one character says about another. So let's look at some examples of these different techniques and how we can incorporate them into our writing. So first, let's look at the different literary devices used in characterization as a review. We've gone over a lot of these before. Tone, point of view, syntax, diction, speech, style, conflict, parallelism, setting, and our figurative language, simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, allusion, imagery, symbolism, irony, and sarcasm. So as we go through these exercises on characterization, we're going to use some of them. This is not a complete list, but it's going to give you ideas and tools that you can develop. And remember, open book, open note. Good notes, good essay. Bad notes, good luck. Next. So the way I like to start off things is with a graphic so I can visualize what is it the author's doing and then use this to help me identify the different characterization techniques. So we start off with the character. Then we have the text, which gives us details of the 5 characterization techniques we just looked at. It can give us the character's perspective and the motives of the character. So why is the character doing this? How do they see things? And based upon that, we can make an inference about the character. That's our comment, the inference. We don't want to retell what the story says or what the character did or said or the comment by the narrator. We want to make an inference about what has been said. That's our comment. Now, the character within the story, he could change, or she, or remain the same. So if we look back to King Lear, we see that King Lear was prideful, arrogant, mean-spirited at the beginning of the play, and at the end of the play, he changed. Well, we need to know, well, what was the event, the climax that led to this? Well, the event was he got kicked out of his daughter's castle and into the storm, which was resulting in eventually his death. So that was a change. Now, what we want to consider next is the catharsis. How does this change affect the audience? We might have a question that asks about that. Now, what were the character traits before the change and after the change, if there is a change? And then what is the outcome of the change? As we go to King Lear, the outcome was that he reconciled with Cordelia. Now, how did all of this affect the work as a whole? If we look back at King Lear as our example, we can see that King Lear is the character, that he had a change because of his the actions that he instigated by dividing his kingdom. The climax was really basically once he had banished Cordelia and divided his kingdom, he no longer had power. But then the results that came up, how did his character traits before and after, and what was the outcome, and how did it affect the work as a whole, which we saw the effects of the tragic hero and all the different characteristics. Also, we want to consider other characters. What are the relationships? When we look at the relationship between Cordelia and King Lear, then we want to consider compare and contrast. How is her characteristics the same or different from King Lear himself? Next, how does that compare and contrast to these two characters affect the work as a whole? Well, we can see through Lear and his tragic hero characteristics that eventually led to his downfall. We see Cordelia. On the other hand, we compare and contrast the loyalty or the disloyalty, the hubris for the humility, the betrayal to the pride. How does that affect the work as a whole? And we see that it all results in the justice and judgment that King Lear experienced. So when I think about characterization, this diagram is what I think about, because this is how an author puts together his ideas. Now, the question next is, where does these... All right, I got cut off a little bit on that last slide. So where does the author put these techniques as he reveals the character? This is important. If he puts it all in the beginning, does he do it in the middle or at the end? So we look at the way a story is put together. We have the exposition. This is where the author introduces the setting, the characters, and the conflict. So we see this in Act 1 of Scene 1 of King Lear. Then we have the rising action. These are events that create suspense, interest, and tension. So the rising action goes all the way till he's at Regan's house and the two daughters expel him. Now the climax, that's the point where the crisis is. So it could be argued the climax could be when he divided the kingdom or when he got the result. Hey, you're outside in the storm. So let's say that is the point. That's the peak. Then we have the falling action. This moves to the resolution and the denouement, the resolution of the particular conflict. That at this point everybody dies in King Lear. So where does the author put each individual technique within the framework of the story, and why? So I want to know that. So as I'm writing this or my essay about the story, I could say he does it in the he or she does it in the exposition, or at the climax, or the falling action, or the denouement. This is creating suspense, and this is why the author did this. So these are the two things I keep in mind: the web that we saw in the previous slide of how it's done, and then this slide of where it's done, so that I can write my essay about and make an inference as to why the author chose the particular techniques and where he or she put it into the story. All right, now the first exercise we're going to do is direct comment by the narrator. This is where the author tells the reader directly a particular character trait. This comes from Flannery O'Connor's Good Country People. Mrs. Freeman could never be brought to admit herself wrong at any point. So the author is revealing a specific trait of this character. Now I'm going to write an SEC paragraph. Well, not really a paragraph, but I'm going to have a statement, an example, and a comment. This is important because if you have these examples, what you're going to do next to you for each of the literary devices, all you have to do is look at the question, what they're asking, look at your notes, plug and play. Open notes, open book. So let's take a look at my example. In his novel, Good Country People, Flannery O'Connor uses direct comment by the narrator to reveal a character trait of Mrs. Freeman. He writes, Mrs. Freeman could never be brought to admit herself wrong on any point. Now, what's my comment? What does that reveal? Flannery indicates to the reader Mrs. Freeman's pride and stubbornness. Now, it didn't say that, but I can make an inference that she's prideful and stubborn. And that's what the comment does. What is Flannery O'Connor revealing about this character through this quote? That's an SEC paragraph, sentences. Now, this is the exercise that we're going to do for all 5 of the characterization techniques. We're going to follow this example. Now, you can have this off to the side. There it is. I have, in his novel, I got my kind of topic sentence talking about the characterization technique of direct comment by the narrator, and I have my comment. So I can use this as an example. Let's continue on. All right, now it's your turn. Right underneath this video, there's a document called Characterization SEC. Within that document has 5 different exercises that you're going to complete this week on characterization. It's going to deal with each of the 5 characterization techniques. You're going to be provided a quote from a novel, and you're going to create an SEC sentences. Let's take a look at the first one. This is direct comment by the narrator. The novel is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is a description of a character, Fermina Daza. Her stylish attire did not seem appropriate for a venerable grandmother, but it suited her figure. Her long bone and still slender and erect, her resilient hands without a single age spot, her steel blue hair bobbed on a slant at her cheek, her clear almond eyes and her inborn haughtiness were all that were left to her from her wedding portrait. But what she had been deprived of by age, she more than made up for in character and diligence. So as I read this, this is direct comment from the narrator. What is the narrator revealing about this particular character? So there's some questions that I want to ask myself. First, what adjectives are used in the description of Fermina? And we have stylish, appropriate, resilient, clear, inborn, haughtiness, diligence. So I want to identify these because this sets the tone that the author uses when describing this character. Next, what words are used to describe her? Grandmother, all that was left, deprived, so something was taken away from her. From the definition of these words, what inferences can be made about her character? So that's what we're doing here is we're making inferences. The author is telling me specific characteristics of the woman, her description, a little bit about her temperament, and I am going to make an inference. So I look at this and I said, okay, she's stylish attire. That means she has pride in her looks. Venerable grandmother. That means that other people in her family revere her. Okay. And then it said she's long bone erect, resilient hands without a single age spot. So resilient hands indicates that perhaps she's still working. Hold on a second. There we go. This is Bridget. Bridget was working. Say hi, Bridget. Hi, how you doing? Look up the camera, Bridget. Hi, how you doing? Okay, I gotta let her down. All right. Her eyes are clear. That means would indicate to me that she still has her mind, even though that she's older. And this is what she has left of her wedding picture, her wedding portrait. Now, why would you bring that up? Perhaps she's sitting there looking at it and she's reminiscing and saying, whoa, I'm getting old, deprived of, so it's been deprived. So something is taken away by her age, all her beauty. These are the only things that are left. So these are the ideas and the questions that I ask and what I perceive the author's trying to tell me about this particular character. Use this, and that's their first exercise. All right, this next example, we're working with the character's description. So when an author describes a character, the way the character looks, the way the mannerisms of the character can reveal things about the character to us. And again, we make inferences. So I read it, I say, the baker, who was an older man with a thick neck, listened without saying anything when she told him the child would be 8 years old next Monday. The baker wore a white, okay, baker, child, 8 years old, he's making a baked birthday cake. Okay, so he's listening. Wore a white apron that looked like a smock, straps cut under his arms, went around in back and then to the front again, where they were secured under his heavy waist. Heavy waist, he's a baker, he makes cookies. Okay, enough said. He wiped his hand on his apron, and as he listened to her, he kept his eyes down on the photographs and let her talk. So I need to ask myself some questions. What is the author trying to reveal to me by describing this character? So the first thing I do when I read this is I get a picture in my mind of this guy. Here he is. Maybe he doesn't got any hair. He's a big guy. Maybe not tall, but he's kind of heavy set because he likes to eat his cookies. And the straps cut on his arms, so maybe he put on a little extra weight over the past couple of months. Who knows? But he's listening intently. He's looking down in the picture, so that lets me think perhaps he's thoughtful. What adjectives are used to describe him? Thick neck, apron, smock, cut under arms, heavy waist, eyes down. Next, what can be surmised about his character from his description? And I think to myself, well, if he's got his eyes down, he's looking at the picture, he's listening intently, he's a master of his craft. He's very into doing a really good job for his customers. So you're going to write a SEC sentences using this one. That's the second exercise. Let's look at the next one. Now, this characterization technique is when the author reveals the thoughts and motivations of a character. Now, when I think about this, your actions could be one way and your thoughts another way. So you're trying to deceive other people. Or your actions are one way and your thoughts are another way and you're deceiving yourself. Let's take a look at this particular quote. I didn't come to Utah to be the same boy I'd been before. Okay, so that lets me know he's wanting to change. I had my own dreams of transformation, Western dreams, dreams of freedom and dominion and taciturn self-sufficiency. Okay, so he had dreams. The first thing I wanted to do was change my name. A girl named Toby had joined my class before I left Florida, and this had caused both of us scalding humiliation. I wanted to call myself Jack after Jack London. I believed that having his name would charge me with some of the strength and competence inherent in my ideal of him. The odds were good that I'd never have to share a classroom with a girl named Jack, and I liked the sound. Jack Wolf. Okay, so here we got this guy, a young kid. He left Florida and he moved out west and he has a dream. And he's talking about transformation. So I have to ask myself questions. What is this revealing about this character? I'm making an inference. That's the comment. Not what it says. He wanted to go west, blah, blah. That's just retelling the story. Dig a little deeper. What does it reveal about this individual? So I read each sentence and determine what ideas are being presented. So he's gone to Utah, didn't want to be the same. So he's talking about change, the way he was in Florida to the way he wants to be. But it doesn't indicate in that first sentence that he is actually changed. I had dreams, past tense. This is back in Florida about transformation, so forth, So the first thing I wanted to do was change my name. So that's the only thing he did. And it talks about the girl. He wanted to go called Jack after Jack London. And he believed that that name would give him the inherent strength and competence. So it seems to me that he doesn't have these things. He just seems like a selfish little kid who just ran off. Well, I'm just going to go do this and I'm going to change and everything's going to be great without thinking it through. Maybe that's what it is. Let's look. He had dreams. Now, how do those dreams compare to his reality? I didn't come to Utah to be the same boy I'd been before. Did he change? Or, because the old saying is, when you get in, everyone moves to Florida, right? When you come down to Florida, all those problems you had up north, guess what? They're in your trunk. It doesn't go away. So the problems he had in Florida and he went to Utah, Did he change? What is the reality versus what his dreams are? And what does it mean he wants to change his name? By changing his name, it's something that he feels that he has control over and not perhaps his inner self. Maybe he's just lying to himself. I don't know. But anyway, I think those are inferences that can be made based upon what the text says. That's a good comment. Let's look at the next example. This is the technique of dialogue. When the author creates dialogue for a character, it reveals a lot about that person. Just like when in real life, the way people talk, the way they interact with other people lets us know what type of person that is. Now let's take a look at this from Pride and Prejudice. Unable to contain herself, Mrs. Bennet began scolding one of her daughters. Don't keep coughing so, Kitty, for heaven's sake. I have a little compassion on my nerves. You tear them to pieces. So what does this character say? What does that reveal the type of person that character is? So I ask myself questions. What verbs are used and what tone is set? Unable to contain herself. Well, that's negative. Remember we had on the wall positive, negative tone. If she can't contain herself, that's negative. So I could write about tone. She's scolding her daughter. So she believes that she's in charge and has the ability to manipulate her daughter's actions. And her daughter's coughing. Can you control coughing? If you got a cold, so she's coughing. And then she says, for heaven's sake, as an exclamation, and have compassion on my nerves. You're tearing them to pieces because she's coughing. What does that reveal about her character? What punctuation did you use and what does it indicate? Well, I see here an exclamation point. For heaven's sake, this poor girl's coughing. So what does that reveal? That this woman has no compassion for her own daughter. What does the words in the exclamation indicate? Well, it's not a curse word, but it's like that. And what is the tone of the last two sentences? Have a little compassion on my nerves. You tear them to pieces. Negative. So we can see that the tone of the words that the author uses creates a mood for the reader that this woman's really not nice. Write your SEC for this one. Dialogue. Your next SEC sentences are going to be about the character's actions. When the author writes what a character does, this reveals to us about a little bit about who the ideas the author is presenting, the themes and the different characters, characteristics of this person. Let's take a look at this from Miles City, Montana. He would hang around our place on Saturdays, scornful of whatever I was doing, but unable to leave me alone. I couldn't be on the swing without him wanting to try it, and if I wouldn't give it up, he came and pushed me so that I went crooked. He teased the dog. He got me into trouble, deliberately and maliciously, it seemed to me afterward, by daring me to do things I wouldn't have thought of on my own, digging up the potatoes to see how big they were when they were still only the size of marbles, and pushing over the stacked firewood to make a pile we could jump off. So I listened. Well, what do I ask myself about this paragraph? Well, first, what adjectives and verbs are used to describe this person's actions? Scornful, unable, push, crooked, teased, deliberately and maliciously, daring and punishing. What is the tone of that? Is it positive or negative? What words, it's obviously negative. Well, what words can I use to describe this? Because and it has to be an inference, not one of the words the author uses. What is the tone? What is the author making me feel, which is the mood? Now I ask myself, he comes only on Saturdays. What does he do the other days? What's his home life like? These are questions I'm just asking myself. Maybe he's jealous of this person that he's going to visit. His home's not nice and he has maybe a horrible home life, and this person has something different. Maybe they got a garden, he doesn't have one. I'm just asking myself questions as a motivation and the perspective of this particular character. Why is he destructive? What are the motivations that makes him destroy things? Why do people destroy things? Jealousy? I don't know. Write SEC sentences. The character's actions. What can I infer that the author's trying to let me know about this character? Now, the last characterization technique we're going to work with is how one character reacts to another, what they say or what they do. This is from the overcoat. No respect at all was shown him in the department. The porters, far from getting up from their seats when he came in, took no more notice of him than if a simple fly had flown across the reception room. 2 sentences, a lot of power in there. So I asked myself some questions. Well, this character works in a department. So when we're looking at the ideas, it comes to mind that we have porters. Now, a porter is a person who carries luggage, lower skilled labor, and they didn't even notice him. So it seems to me that there's a hierarchy indicated in this particular 2 sentences, that within this organization there's a department and he gets no respect there. And even people who were in other areas of the business and of a lower standing don't even notice the person as they walk in. Can a reason be inferred as to why no respect? Does it make you wonder? That's what I think these 2 sentences do. Why does he get no respect? Write your SEC sentences. Okay. SEC sentences are due Sunday, April 12th. Remember, this is an open book, open notes test, the AP test. Good notes, good essay. Bad notes, good luck. We need to have these examples of sentences, all these literary devices that we're going to go over in the next couple of weeks. They'll be right there. Plug and play. You'll look at the device that they're asking you to write about. You'll have examples, although they'll be of a different novel or prose, but you'll still have the framework like we did at the beginning of the year. Plug and play. All these sample SEC sentences for each literary device that we're going to work with. Plug and play. Good luck. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Bye.